This afternoon's proceedings are being live streamed. Those with electronic devices may use them to report what they hear in the hearing room, but only after 10 minutes have elapsed since the event that they're reporting. Such devices may not be used to record or photograph. Mr. Barr.
Thank you, sir. Could we start please, with the document at volume 6, tab C202, document number 22103, please. To make sure we've got the right. Can we go to 006, please? So underscore 006. Thank you very much. This is a up-to-date proforma about an individual. It's dated the 2nd of November 1992, Mr. Coles, and as you will see, attributed as your intelligence. It's about a man who's described as 5'11", slim, and it says, privacy has previously been identified as surname unknown or occasionally privacy. He is a leading light at the 56A bookshop. He was one of those arrested at Waterloo on the 12th of September in the clash between anti-fascists and skinheads. That is a reference, isn't it, to what became known colloquially as the Battle of Waterloo?
I think you're right, yes, yeah.
Did you attend the Battle of Waterloo?
No, I didn't, no.
Can we take that down now, please? I want to move on now to the ALF support group. And it's right, isn't it, that part of your targeting strategy as it developed was to get involved with the ALF SG as a way of furthering your deployment?
That was my original target, actually, yes, but other bits came in the way after that original decision.
Can we look at volume 8, document 742287? which says it was the officers who saw the culprit and moved in to make an arrest.
I think that's right, yeah.
Being very careful with restriction orders
Yes.
and writing it down if you need to do so. Who was arrested for throwing the bag?
I'm afraid I can't remember if it was, in which order it was. I'm not sure. I can't remember, I'm sorry, no.
Can we take that down and go to File 2, Tab B, little 1, 56, 747452. And if we could have that, the text of that blown up. This is much later. This is an MPOIU document from 2002, so a decade after the events.
This is my report about my injury, yeah.
Yeah, it's reporting an injury on that occasion.
Yeah.
It says, on the evening of the 5th of March, 1992, when deployed covertly as a member of MPSB, I was on duty at the Grosvenor House Hotel to provide coverage of a protest by Hunt saboteurs at the Horse and Hounds Ball. I was with a group of animal rights extremists in a corralled area at the north side of the main entrance to the hotel ballroom in Park Lane. The area was surrounded by metal barriers, and the cordon was supplemented by at the roadside by uniform officers, including a TSG serial. For most of the protest, I took up position at the front of the group of protesters at the southwest corner of the corral with my back to the police lines, facing the entrance door to the hotel and the group of protesters. How were you involved in a strong conversation with a police officer if you had your back to the police lines?
It's sort of on a curve like that, so I probably had my back to one and I was talking to someone here looking towards the entrance. So it's a sort of a curved barrier.
The protest was attended by approximately 30 to 40 activists.
Yeah.
That is a considerably smaller number than the one we saw in the contemporary report.
It's about 40 or 50 at that location. Here is a long time after the incident, and I'm working from memory, so I might have got that figure slightly wrong.
And was loud and animated. Persons attending the ball were drawing up in vehicles outside the Park Lane entrance and faced a loud barrage of noise from the protesters. At one point, a white stretched limousine pulled up at the ballroom entrance and two expensively dressed women got out of the car. Both were wearing pale-coloured fur coats, which had the name of a fur shop shaved into the pelts on the back of the coats. Their arrival caused an angry response from the activists, who believed that the women were connected to a furrier business. As the abuse became more pointed and the activists more animated, from the southeastern corner of the corral, 2 flower bombs were thrown at 2 women. I was looking at that corner at the time and identified the activists responsible for the attack.
Yeah, I think I did identify them afterwards. This isn't, as I said, this is some time after the incident took place, and I'm writing about my injury on duty. It's not entirely accurate from my reporting on this one compared to the 1992 one, which would have been more accurate.
You've told us just a moment ago that you weren't looking at where the flower bombs were.
No, I wasn't. I know. So this is incorrect. It's misremembered, if you like.
Why were you claiming responsibility for being an eyewitness to the attackers when you weren't in 2002?
Well, I didn't see I wasn't an eyewitness to it. I'm imagining that I'm mixing up what happened that day to later information when they were identified through the process, and I think I've mixed the two up.
At that point, a group of police officers entered the corral to arrest persons, and then you describe a struggle, and you do so in terms which make no criticism of the police officers.
No. They were charging through to arrest someone. I got in the way.
Did you come to learn that Jessica was one of the people arrested?
Yes, that's right. But I can't remember whether it was the first one or the second one. That's my problem.
Did you see Jessica being arrested, or were you too involved in the melee?
I saw her being taken away, but I didn't see her throwing. So that might be where this mix-up is.
And is it right that subsequently Jessica vehemently protested her innocence?
Yes.
Can we take that down, please? Did you have any reason to doubt her protestations of innocence?
Yes.
Why?
Just she was at that location. I mean, I didn't see her throw her, but she was in that corner where it came from. It could have been one of, I think, 3 people that were involved, so there's a 1 in 3 chance she was involved.
But nothing more than that?
No, I didn't see her physically do it, but she's 1 in 3 possible suspects.
Can we have up from volume 6, document 742251, please? And if we go to page 3, thank you. This is an event pro forma about an event on the 28th of April 1992. Said to be the organisation is said to be the South London and Surrey animal rights activists. Said to be a planning meeting at which 10 people attended. If we look at the text, please. Animal rights activists from London and Surrey held this meeting at the home of Privacy's parents to prepare the defence of Privacy and Jessica for their forthcoming trial, to be held at Privacy Magistrates Court on charges relating to the anti-hunt demonstration outside the Horse and Hounds Ball at the Grosvenor House Hotel in March 1992. Of those present, Privacy, Walter, Andrea McGann, Privacy and Jessica stated their intention to give evidence for the defence. And if we can just go over the page. We see the names of those you were able to identify, and this report is submitted by DCI HN86.
Yes.
This is based on your intelligence, isn't it?
Yes, that's right.
Were you at the meeting?
I've been trying to remember, though. I remember where the subject was Andrew McGann and not Jessica. That's what is in my mind, but I probably was there, yes. It may be that the 2 cases were dealt with at the same time.
What did you mean by prepare the defence?
Concoct a defence that would limit their responsibility for the attack.
You say concoct. I'm
Yes.
inferring from that you are asserting this was a dishonest exercise.
Yes.
To pervert the course of justice.
If you like, yes.
Why doesn't the report say that?
Don't know. It seems that it's a pro forma rather than a full report, so it's probably just a very brief response.
All it states is that certain people are going to give evidence for the defence.
Yes.
Presumably, if there had been a dishonest conspiracy to pervert the course of justice, you would have spelt that out.
I gave that information. I mean, this is a pro forma of an event. I don't know whether this is a sanitised version, and the other more secret detail that I was adding was elsewhere. You haven't been able to find that, I understand.
There would be no need to sanitise particulars of a conspiracy to pervert the course of justice, would there?
Sanitise my involvement or my presence there is what I mean.
My question is directed at the substance of the events at the meeting.
Yeah.
If there had been a conspiracy to pervert the course of justice, this report would have said so, wouldn't it?
It's an event pro forma. It's not a proper report. I can only say that there would probably be another report which was more in depth.
If that's right, what, if anything, was done about your reporting a conspiracy to pervert the course of justice?
Not my call. I reported it as I normally did, and it went into the system.
Did you speak to any of your managers about it?
They would have seen the report. I don't recall the conversation. I mean, I remember the case, and I remember the different descriptions about what people should say and what they said they saw, and who was to take a particular line.
Was there any discussion about what should be done?
So, discussion with whom? Sorry.
Well, if what happened at this meeting was a conspiracy to pervert the course of justice,
Yes.
presumably your managers would have been anxious to do something about that.
It depends on how vulnerable I would have been had that been reported. It may have been too difficult to deal with because it would have exposed me as the source.
Well, was there any discussion to that effect?
I don't remember it, but that seems logical to me. That's probably why this is a very redacted pro forma rather than the full report.
It's a true position that Jessica vehemently protested her innocence. There was a meeting which was not a dishonest conspiracy, which you have reported in terms which are not asserting any wrongdoing.
My memory of it is to do with Andrea McGann and her defence, not to do with Jessica or with any other person. So my memory is that it was to do with her and her appearance.
And what is your recollection of Andrea McGann's defence?
Of this same process of trying to work out what to say, that she was innocent of what she was being accused of and someone else was responsible, or there were eyewitnesses to the fact she didn't do what it was said she did.
And presumably you did not know whether Andrea McGann had thrown any flour?
No, I didn't see, no. I just saw where the officers went and the people that they arrested.
Jessica's evidence was that after she'd been arrested and injured in the process of arrest, she hadn't been able to see what had happened and wanted to know from her friends who were present what had happened when she was not able to see for herself.
Right.
Does that fairly summarise what she was seeking from the meeting?
I don't know. That's what she thinks it was about. It's not what I believe. As I say, it was about Andrea McGann more than her.
The privacy redaction over organiser, other organisation is not Andrea McGann's name, nor is the place anything to do with McGann. It's to do with somebody's parents. Would the document have had McGann as the organiser, other organisations, if that was the purpose of the meeting?
I remember going to the meeting about the people who were arrested, and it was at someone's address, but in my mind it was somewhere else. But again, my memory is not particularly brilliant in terms of where it took place. I do remember being surprised at the amount of what's the word I'm looking for? People working together to come up with a story that they were all comfortable with.
Can we take that document down now and move to Jessica in particular?
Yeah.
In 1992, she was 19 years old, wasn't
Yes.
she? And you were 32 years old.
Yes.
And you had a cover identity by which you were purporting to be 28 years old.
Yes.
Did you tell Jessica that you were 24 years old?
No.
Did you know Jessica to be someone who had left home in her mid-teens?
And the first time I knew where she lived, she was living with her parents. That was one of the first times I met her.
So your recollection is when you met her, she was living with her parents, but then shortly moved out.
Yeah.
You've been shown some photographs of
Yes.
Jessica that were taken in France after her job there had ended and she went back to get her bicycle, according to her
Right.
evidence. She was a young-looking 19-year-old, wasn't she?
Yes.
Making her way on her own in London, on your recollection, for the first time.
Not on her own. She was with other animal rights people she knew from Sabbing.
Away from her family.
Away from the family, yeah. She's with a close friend as well. They moved together.
At the time, was your cover address in Streatham?
I'm not sure. I moved from one address to Streatham, so possibly yes.
And she, at the time, was living in a shared house in East London,
Yes, that's right.
some miles from Streatham.
Yes.
And that house contained, amongst others, Jessica's room.
Yes.
That was a room with one bed with a mattress and one divan without a mattress.
Correct.
There was a housemate in the house who had a portable television in her room.
Right, yes. Possibly. There was a television. I don't know if it was portable or not. I can't remember.
And there was a living room.
Yeah.
And you made it your business to frequent that house.
Not for... Mainly on Wednesdays, I'd take everybody back there from the meeting of LBAG. So it'd be one Wednesday a month, something like that. I'd go back and drop them off.
And go into the house.
Sometimes, yeah.
Were there occasions when you would turn up without a specific invitation or reason?
Possibly, yeah.
Why?
Depends on the timing, but I think because Jessica had been identified to me as an ALF activist, I was very keen to get close to her so that I could hopefully get recruited into the same group that she was involved in.
Who identified Jessica to you as an ALF activist?
Let me just check the names. JRA.
When?
It was in a SAB in the winter. And across the valley where we were, there was Jessica's red Mini. And I said to him, we'd become quite friendly. We had a number of discussions about things, particularly the thing that just sticks in my mind is the fact that he was Benny Hill's embalmer, which was something that really stuck in my mind. He was worked in an undertaker's. And I was a bit concerned about identifying who was around me. This red Mini turned up from nowhere. I hadn't seen it before. Who's that? And he said, oh, that's the ALF girls. And I thought he was joking with me. And I thought, don't be serious. What were you talking about? I said, no, that's the ALF girls. Oh, right, okay. So then it was my job to try and get close to them at some time in the future.
Did he give any specifics?
No, not at all.
And when you went to the house, you would talk, watch television, that sort of thing, with the people there?
Well, hold on, no, this is a long time in the future. At that stage, I hadn't had a chance to meet with her, and I was trying to find some way of being able to meet with her in a way that may mean that she would see me in a favourable light as a potential recruit. That didn't happen until she had a breakdown. I managed to assist her by towing her home.
When was that?
I think the 1991-1992 hunt season, I can't be specific on the date, but it was while she was still living at her parents' address.
But by the time she is living in East London and you are frequenting the house...
From time to time, yes, I am, yeah.
You are talking to people, you are watching television there, is that right?
Occasionally, mainly on these Wednesday evenings after London Boots Action Group.
And you are essentially trying to inveigle your way in the hope...
To become a close friend, yeah, that's right.
Did you often watch television there?
No, not very often, no.
Did there come an occasion when you were watching television with Jessica and you moved forward and kissed her?
No.
Are you certain about that?
I mean, it's difficult to know whether... I mean, sometimes you greet each other with a hug, that sort of thing was not unusual. It's difficult to remember. It's just what's normal social interaction with people.
Was that kiss the beginning of what became a sexual relationship?
That's what she says.
What's your version of events?
From what I remember, I stayed over... Well, let me go back to the beginning, because it's probably important to get this right so you understand the situation. There was a time when we were told that investigative journalists would be getting involved in South London animal rights, and I was told to be very careful about moving to and from my flat in South London, just in case I was followed off. That later was identified as the Beam into Silver programme, so and it was their expose of the Surrey Union Hunt and also Brixton Hunt Sabs. At the time, I didn't know what was going on in terms of who it was and what they were doing, so I decided to take up a regular offer I had from the activists who lived at that East London address. Often I'd pick them up. I'd never drink when I'm driving. They used to say, well, you should come back to us, have a drink on us, because you're always giving us a lift. And I declined it. But when this Beam into Silver inquiry started, I didn't know it was them at the time, when this investigative journalist inquiry started, I decided that the best thing as a cutout from Elbag was to go to another address and not go directly to my own, which is why I went to the East London address. So that's the time that this sort of thing is going on. And then I also had always said, if I'm drinking, I'm not driving. And so they said, well, you can stay over. And on one occasion, I stayed over on a little sofa there. At this stage, I'd also got my injury, so I'd actually got a bit of a slipped disc, and I was struggling. So I stayed on that sofa. It was appallingly uncomfortable, so that was that, and I went off. The next time I came, Jessica said, well, there's the dog bed, I think she called it. There was this extra bed on the in her room that I could sleep on, which I did. It was very uncomfortable. And on the third occasion, the same thing, but this time she invited me to sleep in her bed because of my back pain. So this idea of watching telly and then having an initiation of a sexual relationship is not accurate. What actually happened was I was staying over and she just invited me to sleep in her bed, which had a mattress.
With her?
With her, yes, that's right, single
bed?
Yeah.
The journalists?
Yes.
When were you warned that there might be investigative journalists moving in the same circles as you?
I can't remember exactly.
Who by?
The office, the management. Sorry about this. I can't remember the name. HN86.
The programme aired in February 1993.
Right.
Does that help you?
Probably, yes.
What is your best recollection of when you were warned by HN86 that there were investigative journalists floating around?
I can't remember. It was that winter. It was that hunt season. There was a whole series of things that they did. So I think, I don't know what the lead time was for the BBC, if it was the BBC, broadcast times, but...
How did HN86 know about the activities of undercover journalists?
I don't know. My guess is that there was an inquiry from the BBC about something, but I don't know how he knew that.
And what was your concern?
About being
Arise-
identified, being followed back to my home address and being exposed.
To your real home?
To my real home address, yeah.
Wasn't the answer to that conundrum simply to go and stay at your Duff address?
I didn't want that to be connected to me either.
I beg your pardon?
If in the future the BBC investigative journalists wanted to have another look, and by which time I didn't know what was going on, I could very easily have gone directly from that address to my home address. So I wanted a cutout that didn't involve either my false address or my home address, because they had the resources to mount a surveillance that would not be something like the animal rights movement could do, which would probably be one car or something like that. If I could explain, going home was not a simple matter of just leaving the flat in South London and then driving home. I used to drive off at 2 o'clock in the morning. I would be taking a circuitous route. I used to stop off in Hackney, park up the van, walk away from it for about half a mile across an open green space and watch it for at least half an hour to an hour before I got in and went away again. So I was extremely careful about my address potentially being exposed by someone knowing where my Duff address was. I was very careful about my personal space and my family home.
And presumably there were concerns anyway about the people you were mixing with and spying on doing something similar?
That was always the worry. That's why I had that rather protracted process to make sure I was clean before I went home.
But that didn't stop you using your Duff address?
In what way?
Well, what I mean is that was the entire purpose of the Duff address. It was somewhere for you to stay as part of your legend.
Yes, but it wasn't a secure thing. It's only one stop between there and my real home address. So what I'm talking about here is a specific and unknown threat of investigative journalists at the BBC following you about, and following you about for more than just your first stop.
And you're suggesting that a BBC journalist would be mounting 24-hour surveillance on your flat?
No, I'm suggesting that by not having a cutout, there was a potential that they could follow me back to my home address. I wasn't prepared to take that risk.
Drink driving.
Yeah.
So you're saying that to avoid drink driving, you were invited to stay?
It's part of my cover always. I said I don't drink and drive.
Whilst you were sleeping in Jessica's single bed,
Yes.
was there any physical contact between you?
Well, we'd be touching in the bed. Yes, it's a very small single bed.
Was there any contact of a sexual nature?
No,
You sure about that?
I'm absolutely sure.
Why didn't you sleep somewhere else to avoid the concerns and not sleep in the single bed of a 19-year-old?
I was staying with a fellow activist, and it wasn't unusual to share your bed with someone. I did it from time to time in my dodgy address on a regular basis beforehand in the other address as well, that people would come and stay with you, and it was perfectly normal. Also during cubbing, during the hunt, 2 or 3 people would stay over. This was just how you managed the business of activism.
Why didn't you find a way of avoiding that sort of close physical contact with a 19-year-old member of the opposite sex?
There was no issue with me being that close to an activist. It had happened before, it happened later. It was perfectly normal.
Is the truth that you started a sexual relationship with Jessica?
No, that's not true.
That you attended the house perhaps as often as 4 to 5 times a week to pursue that sexual relationship?
Once a month, probably.
And was the understanding that it was a monogamous sexual relationship?
It wasn't a sexual relationship, it was an activist relationship.
Could we have your witness statement up, please? 35074. Can we have page 139, please? Paragraph 295. I did not share a bed with Jessica in Jessica's East London address on any occasion that I can remember. However, I did sleep in her bedroom on at least 2 occasions, as described at paragraph 290 above. I accept that I told the risk assessors I had shared a bed with Jessica on 5 or 6 occasions, but I now recognise that I was confusing Jessica with Andrea McGann.
Yes.
Why, in a statement, the truth of which you confirmed to me this morning, did you say you did not share a bed with Jessica in her East London address, and are you now telling me on oath that in fact you did?
I'm comfortable with what I've just told you that I remember. I got very confused when I spoke to the assessors originally about who'd been whom, and I then recalled later on that it was Andrea McGann that had stayed with me for about a week when she became homeless. I think I'm right, what I've just said. I think it's right. I certainly remember staying in her bedroom on the dog bed, and I think I stayed on the mattress on the 3rd occasion. I think that's right. I didn't get that right on this particular occasion. It's been quite difficult to remember exactly what happened here.
Sleeping in a single bed with
Yeah.
a 19-year-old member of the opposite sex
Yeah.
is something you would remember, isn't it?
I remember parts of the conversation that we had. As I've said, I think I stayed that one occasion, the 3rd occasion. I certainly remember sleeping on the sofa. I remember sleeping on the dog bed, and I think I also slept with her. But
Can I come back?
I may be mixing this up with Andrew McGann. It's a difficult thing to remember.
Can I come back to my question?
Yeah.
Why have you signed a witness statement saying I did not share a bed with Jessica and give evidence today that you did?
It's that problem about trying to remember that far back about who I did sleep with and who I didn't sleep with and who was in my bed and who was in someone else's bed. I'm pretty confident I did sleep with her on one occasion in her single bed. I think that's right.
Jessica and Andrea McGann are physically very different, aren't they?
Yes. But as I said, there were others that came to stay as well.
Can we take that down now, please? Great Hookley Farm.
Yes.
There was an animal liberation action at the farm, wasn't there?
Yes, that's right.
Did you drive on that action?
I was one of the drivers, yes.
How many vehicles were there?
4, I think.
What is your recollection of when it occurred?
I'm not sure of the date. I don't know if that's before us on a report. It was quite a long process going there. I think I was initially approached and asked if I would drive. Later on, I was then shown where it was, and that's when I had a conversation with a particular individual about my involvement. I think we then did a recon. Then there was an occasion when we were going to go and do the liberation raid, and it was interrupted because a group of soldiers were there, and so we aborted. And then I think it would be the 5th occasion was when the actual event took place. So we're talking about quite a period of time here. I'm not exactly clear on the dates.
Our understanding is the raid itself happened in June of 1992. Would you disagree with
I accept that, yeah. I'm not entirely sure of the date.
Being very careful about privacy, using the cipher list, writing it down if needs be, who asked you to be the driver?
ASW.
Did you play a role recruiting other activists to join the action?
No. I was the new boy, so no.
Jessica's evidence is that you persuaded her to join the action. Did you?
No, the opposite. I remember going to one of the meetings early on, turning up, and then she turned up with somebody else. So in a way, I was relieved that I'd identified the right person as being involved in ALF activity. But we didn't go together, no.
When you say you didn't go together, can I be clear? When you went to Great Hookley Farm, was she ever in the vehicle that you
Now,
drove?
that's possible. I did take a number, because there were all these vehicles going, they couldn't take everybody. It was quite a big crowd, I think 15 people in total. So on the way there, I probably did, yes.
And were you stopped by police as you were leaving?
No, that's not right. I can
Are
tell
you
you what actually happened.
Okay, you tell us your version of events.
Okay. Well, what actually happened was that we turned up. A number of the group went into. They wanted to go into the battery area, but by that time the farmer had put security lights on it, so that was out of order. Went into the barn, took some barn chickens and carried them away in animal carriers and some mail bags as well. If you can imagine, we stopped off. There's quite a long, about a quarter of a mile walk into the back of the farm to get in. So there was a route set out by ASW with little lamps on the gateposts to get there. The animals were picked up and carried out. And then I was in the van on my own with all of these chickens coming in. I'm not sure whether one or two people jumped in the front. It's possible. And then we drove down to a sanctuary. Can I give its name? I don't think it appears in the papers anywhere. Are you happy for me to give the name to the sanctuary where we went?
If you could write that down, please.
And we went there and stayed there for about 2 hours, 3 hours, waiting to see if there was any pursuit or there were any issues. We got all the chickens out of the bags because they were overheating, and 7 unfortunately died as a result. And then as dawn was breaking around about 5:30, 6 o'clock, I and one other activist got in the van to go to another sanctuary where we were going to put the chickens that had been rescued. She was a worker at that sanctuary, and that was across the border. And then the other activists went away in the 2 hire cars and ASW's van. And then as I was leaving, about 6:30, as I say, certainly when it was daylight, then I saw a blue light behind and sirens, and then we were stopped as the others went ahead and disappeared into the distance. And then the officer came to speak to me and wanted to find out if I got any, if I'd stolen any machinery. I think he was looking for, I think he said travellers who'd been stealing machinery from farms nearby. And I said, no, we're moving chickens from the sanctuary to another one. He was happy with that, and off he went.
If I've understood and followed your account, you, when at the farm, stayed in your van. Is that your evidence?
Yeah, that's right.
Could we go back to your witness statement, please?
Yep.
35074. Paragraph 207, please.
Yeah,
I'll get you a page number if I can.
I'm there.
96.
Yeah.
Paragraph 207.
Yeah.
Just over the page, please. My recollection is that ASW persuaded me to get involved. I did not put pressure on anyone to get involved. I did enter the premises.
The farm itself, yes, that's right.
I took the photograph that is shown in this section of the Powerbase article. The person on the right is Jessica. I think the person on the left wearing a mask is privacy, privacy. I did drive activists and animals away.
Yes, that's right.
That suggests, doesn't it, that you did leave your van in order to take the photograph?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I thought you were referring to the sanctuary. When we arrived, I did follow them on behind, as I said, and then I took the photograph to be used in the Animal Liberation magazine. I can't remember. Was it CRC, I think?
Well, we've got the transcript to record your earlier answers. Can we take that down, please? Can we have up next from Bundle 6, C188 739 788, please? Jessica goes to France in the late summer, early autumn of 1992, doesn't she?
Yes.
This is a report dated the 29th of September 1992. We understand it to be your intelligence. It's reporting the move, and it is providing an address in France.
Yes.
Is that correct?
I think so, yeah.
And at this stage, organisations, Southern England Animal Liberation Investigation Unit, Hunt Saboteurs Association. Conspicuous by its absence is ALF, isn't it?
I've just got privacy on. I'm afraid I can't see the details.
That's for the associates.
Oh, I see. I beg your pardon. Right. Yeah. Got it. Yeah.
Could we take that down now and go to tab 195, 740952? And if we have that expanded a little, 23rd of October, an SDS report submitted by HN86. It says, Jessica, previously reported as a resident of Jessica's East London address, has now departed from the UK and is now living at an unknown address in Privacy, France. It is not known when she intends to return to the UK. She has left her vehicle, a red Mini registration Privacy, at Jessica's East London address for the use of residents at that address. Is this your reporting?
It seems like it's a sanitised version for another use, but I guess it is.
Well, you say sanitise, but there is a frank difference between the address we saw recorded in the last report and the positive assertion that the address is unknown.
Yes.
Are you suggesting that's a deliberate act of sanitisation?
Yes.
Could we take that down now, please? Could we go file 4, B, Roman numeral 4, 5, 735 511. Thank you. If we have that expanded, this is a gist of a handwritten letter which Jessica has said she wrote to a friend whilst she was in France. And I think you've seen the copy, you've seen a copy of that letter without the restrictions.
Yes.
Well, no wonder you left it so long before you wrote. You'll have to go out and make some gossip, boy, or you could just do what I do and lie. It makes great reading. Well, how's your Andy? I don't have one anymore. He has really pissed me off. In this letter he wrote to me, I've probably already told you this. I don't really care. Here it is again. Anyway, it's worth a few laughs. He suggested that we see other people, because if I decided to stay over here for another year, it wouldn't be fair on him. Those weren't his exact words, but in a nutshell, he wouldn't be getting enough sex. So if we both agreed to see other people, he wouldn't feel guilty. So I wrote a letter back saying I'll see other people, for example, Swedish sailors. But if you see any sluts, it's over. Then he rang me and said, what do I think we should do? So I said, let's call it quits. He said, okay. I told him I'd ring him in a couple of weeks, but he said no, he'd write. That was over a month ago, so fuck him. It was getting on my nerves anyway when blokes asked if I had a boyfriend. Good old me, though, I never lied. I always said yes, but I'll fuck you because he's in London. That's honest. I'd like to direct your particular attention to the first two sentences of that second paragraph. Well, how's your Andy? I don't have one anymore.
Yes.
On its face, this is contemporary written evidence that you had been in a sexual relationship with Jessica, isn't it?
That's what it says, yes. But what I would like to say is if I look at that letter as I have been shown, and the other one, it's two entirely different hands that write them. So I don't understand how someone can write two letters within 6 months and use two completely different hands to write them. My suggestion is that that letter isn't true. It clearly isn't true because it's making certain allegations that are not true. And why it would be in two different hands would be something I'd be interested in the inquiry to find out why that's the case.
Can we take that letter down now and have up from volume 4, B, Roman numeral 4, 735510. Again, another handwritten letter. You've seen a copy of the original. If we could go over to the next page. And the next page. Thank you. Could we have expanded the text at the bottom of that page? It's really weird, but I'm still going out with Andy. Yes, all these miles away. Strange. I might dump him when I see him next. Well, when I leave him next to come back here, because I will need somewhere to stay when I go to London. Bitch, aren't I? I don't really want to see the house at Jessica's former address. I will be really upset because people will be staying in my room. Bastards. So I will need to stay somewhere. I will let you know when I will be coming back. That will be great. Sabbing, seeing privacy. Apparently it's easy to sab the union because the terrier boys aren't allowed to touch you. Obviously, the main thing that I wish to draw your attention to is that opening sentence. It's really weird, but I'm still going out with Andy.
Yes.
Jessica's evidence was to the effect that after the incident she described in the first letter and your breaking up, you got back together again before Christmas when she came home to England.
No.
Did that happen?
That's not what happened at all, no.
Why is Jessica writing to a friend saying, it's really weird, but I'm still going out with Andy?
That I can explain. This time that I was staying over at the East London address, that's when Jessica wanted to have a relationship with me. And that was when I was trying to find the best way of dealing with that. If you can imagine, here's a young woman who wants a relationship with me, which I'm not seeking. I cannot affect the relationship that we currently have as activists because she's part of an ALF cell and I don't want to lose that. I'm about to get involved in the ALFSG and I don't want that to happen. So the only option I had there was to string on that idea of a relationship, which is what I did. So I said to her, go over to France, by all means. I don't want to start a relationship until you come back. So I gave her the option to say, yes, we are going to be in a relationship, but it won't be fully a relationship until she comes back. And my intention of doing that was to hope that in the time that she was over there that it would it would wane and that would be the end of it. So that's what she's talking about there. In her mind, we were going to be in a relationship, although she was going to be abroad. In my mind, I wanted to manage that relationship as sensitively as I could so it wouldn't affect my current ability to infiltrate the ALF.
Let's explore that relationship a little bit more.
Yes.
You started by saying words to the effect of she was demonstrating an interest in having a relationship with you.
Yes.
How do you say that was manifesting itself?
It was quite a blunt thing. You can fuck me if you like, is one thing she said to me. I think I mentioned that somewhere in a report.
What else?
We talked about, oh yes, she said, but only if you wear condoms. And I then went into a rather bizarre discussion about the fact that there were no vegan condoms at the time, so that couldn't be something that we could do, which was me grasping at straws to try to avoid this relationship issue as best I could.
Was this before, during, or after your being in her single bed with her?
During, I think. Well, it may have been before. I mean, this is hard to remember.
And in leading up to that conversation, had she made any physical move towards you?
We were quite friendly.
What I'm driving at, Mr. Coles, is you are in bed
Yes.
with 19-year-old Jessica,
Yes.
a single bed,
Yes.
and on your evidence, she has asked you, or offered to let you fuck her.
That's what she said, yes.
Did she say this entirely out of the blue, or is there anything remotely approaching foreplay involved?
There wasn't any obvious reason for it, no. As I said, we were friendly, and I think
Mr. Lowenthal, my understanding is, I've been informed, that Jessica does not wish the restriction order to be, which was recently read out, to be upheld on the basis that it restricted something that was private to her, but she is no longer concerned to protect that.
That's correct, sir.
Thank you very much indeed. Then the restriction order that was announced when I rose 15 minutes ago no longer applies. Everybody is free to report what they heard in the hearing room, unrestricted.
Thank you, sir. Just before we resume the chronology, Mr. Coles,
Yes.
I would like to go back to the sexual attention that you say Jessica was paying to you.
Yes.
When did she start showing a sexual interest in you?
The invitation came out of the blue.
So it was a single incident.
From my perspective, yes, that's right.
Was it repeated?
No, I don't think it was, no.
How sure of that are you?
As best as I can remember.
Picking up the narrative,
Yeah.
after Christmas, Jessica goes back to France, doesn't she?
That's what you say, yeah. I'm not aware of her coming back over Christmas.
She comes back in the early summer because she sustained an injury. At that point, does she stay with you?
No.
At any point thereafter?
Not stay with me, no. No.
Defining stay as staying overnight.
No, no. We may have bumped into each other somewhere, but I'm not entirely sure.
Jessica's evidence is that the sexual relationship continued during this period. You continued to have sex and you always used condoms. Is that
She
correct?
wasn't in the UK.
When she's come back?
We weren't connected when she came back.
Did you ever have sex with Jessica?
No, I didn't.
Jessica's evidence was that there came a point in time when she said that you did not need to use a condom, and you told her that you'd had a child with whom you now had no contact, and for that reason insisted on using a condom. Did
That
any
was
such...
part of my cover, that's right. As I've said before, that I'd had an unfortunate relationship and a child resulted that I wasn't able to see.
Did you tell Jessica that?
I guess so. It was the legend. It was my cover that I deployed. So yes,
When did you tell Jessica that?
I'm not sure.
In what circumstances?
I guess at the same time
Same time as?
the other comments.
Are we back in the bed in...
I think so. I think that's when. It would have been something I would have deployed to try to get myself out of that situation. Yes.
That was the sort of account that Jessica's evidence is affected her emotionally because she felt guilty about being pleased that you no longer had contact with your child.
I'm not sure I can be held responsible for her emotional reaction to something I've said.
Well, in the sense that if you are a police officer spinning false accounts which play with people's emotions unnecessarily, you're responsible for that, aren't you?
I feel responsible, yes, of course, but what was more important was to avoid this invitation to a sexual relationship and to put myself in some distance to that if I could.
Jessica went on to form a relationship with a man we are calling QK.
Yes.
She says that a particularly memorable and rather awkward moment was when she first met QK. Her account is that she first met QK when she was in bed with you at your cover address. Is that what happened?
That's probably why it was a surprise, because it didn't happen.
Are you sure about that?
Definite.
She says that she then spent more time at what was to become her South London address.
Yes.
Did you spend more time at the South London address thereafter?
No, I didn't, no.
Why not?
I mean, I may have popped round to see some of the residents, but by that stage I was moving on to more of this SG work. So the connections I had there, which tended to be around sabbing and a little bit, some of them were involved in another ALF cell, which they invited me to take part in one of their actions.
Some of the residents at of the South London?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
Well, you've explained that one of the reasons you spent time at the East London address was because they were the very people you were seeking to report upon. If Jessica moves to the South London address,
Yep.
she's staying with people who, on your evidence, are part of another ALF cell.
No, same people, but at different cells. There are at least 2, maybe 3 of the individuals are the same, but there are different people as well.
Aren't they exactly the sort of people you wanted to mix with?
At that stage, my direction was towards the LFSG and not to get involved in criminal activity.
It's a reality that you'd been frequenting the East London address because of an sexual interest in Jessica.
No, an activist interest.
Is it right that Jessica became increasingly attracted to QK and finished the relationship with you?
I reported that she went to an address in the South Coast with him and then disappeared from the London scene.
Doesn't answer my question. Did Jessica finish the relationship between you and her?
No, we drifted apart as I was hoping, and she then, when she came back, didn't come to see me, and then she went off to the South of England address with that individual.
When you say drifted off, are you using those words because she was under the impression she was in a sexual relationship with you?
Oh, no, I mean, she moved down there. She drifted away from the South London connections.
Her evidence is that the breakup was amicable and that you continued to hang around at the South London address. Are either or both of those things true?
I said I may have visited from time to time occasionally, but my main target then was SG and not a live ALF investigation or infiltration.
Can we have up, please, from Volume 1, Tab A4, 735546. This is a document produced by Op. Pitchford, a reference to this inquiry's first late chairman. It's dated the 5th of May 2017. If we could go over the page, please. It's manuscript note. We understand this to be a manuscript note made by officers from Operation Pitchford following a meeting with you for the purposes of a risk assessment relating to the anonymity process in this inquiry.
Yes.
Do you agree?
I guess so, yeah. Yeah, I remember the meeting.
N2, challenge to his lover.
Cover.
To his cover, beg your pardon. female activist became obsessed with him, wanting a relationship, difficult to distance himself.
Yes.
Obsessed with you. The evidence you've given today is that her sexual interest in you manifested itself on a single occasion in bed at the East London address. How is that an obsession?
I can't answer someone else's notes here. I don't understand how someone's using their own language here about what I said.
Did you tell the risk assessors that Jessica was obsessed with you?
I don't remember the words, but I did describe what I've described here today. I got the number of times wrong, I think, because I mixed up a couple of different events involving two different people, but I think I got it largely right.
It's quite a mistake to make, isn't it, to mistake a single sexual approach with an obsession that it was difficult to distance yourself from.
I don't accept that that was my word. It may have been their word. What I was trying to explain, I think at the time I'd confused Jessica with Andrea McGann and the time that she'd stayed over with me, and I may have thought it was the same person, and I may have used a term like, if I remember right, I said 5 or 6 times that someone had stayed with me, and I got that wrong because it was a start, the start of a memory that I hadn't really clarified until I had a chance to think about it.
Is it your evidence that Andrea McGann was sexually obsessed with you?
Oh, no, not at all, no.
Difficult to distance yourself. Did you say that? Or anything to that effect?
Well, as I've described, it was difficult to distance myself from the sexual relationship, that's right.
But on your evidence today, it wasn't, because you said no, you told her about a child, you made an excuse about vegan condoms, you made a promise of an intimate relationship in some time in the future, and she was going off to France.
And it still continued that she wanted that relationship. That's what I mean about that.
Jessica had a long history in animal rights, originally from Privacy, had links to the Hunt Saps. He spent time with her at her instigation. No sexual contact, resisted her advances. Did you say anything to that effect to the officers?
That's a summation of what I've just said. It's their words, not mine.
In the plural, advances.
Exactly.
Consistent with obsession, but
Yeah.
not with your evidence today.
No. As I say, it's someone else's notes, not my words.
High instance of promiscuous relationships. STD very frequent and common. She wanted a sexual relationship but wanted to have protective sex. He, as a vegan, would not use condom against principles.
That's right.
Had a serious psychological problem, father issue, feeling of neglect, atmosphere of sexual liberal approaches.
Yes. It's all muddled up. It's a series of notes there which sort of I was trying to describe the situation, and these notes sort of, they make some sense.
Being very careful with privacy,
Yeah.
please, Mr. Coles. Who else made a sexually liberal approach to you during the course of your deployment?
I can remember a particular gay man who kissed me quite passionately and wanted a relationship. That wasn't something I was keen on. There was a general discussion about, I think this comes from, it might have come from when I was in the office and we were talking about the risks of, no, that's not right, it was afterwards, talking about the prevalence within the animal rights movement of not using contraception because generally the males would be sterilised, and that was the way that babies were avoided, and as a result STDs could be still passed on. And I can't remember where that conversation came from, but I think it was probably while I was in the field. I'm not entirely sure who with. So it's all a mixed-up story here.
If I could ask you to stay with my question.
Yeah.
You told us about a gay man kissing you.
Yes.
Did any woman other than Jessica make a sexual advance to you during your deployment?
Yes, I think so.
Is that a person who you know the cipher for, or no, is not ciphered, or is that somebody whose name you need to write down for us?
I can remember a first name, but someone in the peace movement. There was someone at Glastonbury, but I don't even know the name.
So in the piece, is this the same person?
No, these are two different people. But
Two different women?
Yeah.
One at Glastonbury,
Yeah.
one in the peace movement.
Yes. This wasn't an unusual thing to happen, but often it was easy to rebuff them.
Have you mentioned these before?
I've never been asked about them before.
Could you write down, as best you can remember them, their names?
I can only remember one first name.
If you could write that down, please. And if that could be shown first of all to the chairman and then to me, please. Thank you. You then go on, as recorded by the officers, to say that you used to share beds with both female and male activists in squats during your deployment. That, I think, is consistent with
Not just squats, though, but yes, it was not unusual.
you've given today. Did you ever speak to your managers about that?
No,
Why not?
this was normal practice within the movement. It was reasonably well known, I thought.
Did that ever lead to physical contact in bed between you and a female activist?
Yeah, well, you'd be physically touching each other if you're in the same bed, absolutely.
In what state of undress?
Generally clothed.
How clothed?
Gosh. To allow modesty, I suppose. I mean, this is quite a difficult question to answer.
How much modesty was there in the sorts of squats that you were frequenting?
The instances I'm thinking of is when you're going to go cubbing and you stay over and people are there. 2 or 3 others would be staying with me and we will all be crashed on the bed waiting for 3:30 to come round so then we can go off and then go do the sabbing. And occasionally I'd stay over. There was a chap I remember breaking his squat open and he wanted assistance to get some furniture in and I stayed over in the one bed that was in the squat. And, these were not salubrious accommodation by any stretch of the imagination. There's just one mattress to lie on.
HN87 has given evidence to this inquiry about a similar practice.
Okay.
But he says that on occasions there was close physical contact, whether that was spooning, cuddling up, or on his account some limited sexual activity.
Right.
Did anything like that ever occur with you?
No.
Any physical affection at all demonstrated by you to a woman or a woman to you?
We're always friendly, and yeah, we're activists together. We're all trusting relationships.
Sorry,
So,
could you be a bit more specific in answering that question?
how would you like me to answer it?
Was there ever any affectionate physical contact when you are in bed with female activists?
By affectionate, you mean what?
Well, I have a little problem, Mr. Coles, as you seem to like very specific questions.
Yes.
I am driving at whether there was any sort of physical contact you had with a woman or any woman in a bed in your undercover deployment that is not the sort of physical contact you would have had with a man.
It would be the same if it was a male or a female staying in my bed. It's just people in the bed sleeping together. I mean,
Did you
are
snuggle?
we affectionate? Yes, of course we are, because we're activists together.
You snuggled up?
No, we're sleeping in the bed, ready to go off to go and do a SAB or to do cubbing, or just resting. You know,
Rigid physical separation?
no.
So where in between? I mean, you were there, I wasn't. Where in between those two answers are you?
Well, you're probably touching because you're in the same bed. If it's cold, you might be close. If you haven't got sufficient covers, you would. I mean, it's innocent contact between two people who trust each other, but it's not a sexual thing or anything like that. But you know, you're asking me very difficult questions to answer. How would you like me to phrase it? We're not sexual, but we are friends, and we are in the same bed, and we're about to go and do an action later on, and we're tired, and we're trying to get to sleep, and we're having a bit of a chat and a laugh, and maybe alcohol has been taken. You know, this is what happened.
And then if we look at the last two paragraphs over the page, these allegations are of a similar background and approach. I'm finding it very difficult to read that, and something in committed activism. Jessica was very much committed to this lifestyle. So we're talking about Jessica again. She subsequently formed a relationship with another activist and dropped her obsessive behavior toward him. Did you say anything to that effect to the Operation Pitchford officers?
It sounds like, as I've said today, that there was this desire to maintain a relationship even though she was away in France, and that she dropped it over time.
The context, we're talking about obsessive sexual behavior, aren't we?
We're talking about obsessive behavior, yeah.
Wanting a sexual relationship.
Wanting a relationship, that's right.
So, in fact, contrary to the answers you gave me earlier about there being a single incident in bed in 1992, you were giving the impression to Operation Pitchford that there was continual obsessive behaviour all the way through until she forms a relationship with QK in the summer of 1993.
There was a continued desire to have a relationship with me when she was in France. That's right. That's what that's referring to.
And yet you've told me today that there was no other sexual advance other than the one in bed in 1992.
It was like a done deal, you know, that when you come back, then we'll talk about it. That was the point.
But she did come back.
She didn't come to see me because she'd moved on.
She came back and she didn't form the relationship with QK immediately.
No.
So if she's, on your account, she's got an interest in you, you've promised her a relationship,
Yeah.
she comes back from France and doesn't see you.
That's right. That's what happened.
I mean, you have reported on her in her South London address.
Yes, exactly. As I said, I have visited there once or twice, and it was part of that, the cell that was there that were planning a different attack.
Can we now look, please, again at your witness statement,
Yeah.
which is 35074. page 137,
Yeah.
paragraph 292.1, please.
Yeah.
I have been referred to the, perhaps if I can have the preamble, I've been referred to the notes taken by the risk assessor, 735546. I remember having this conversation and it is generally accurate. Jessica was interested in having a sexual relationship with me. I may have used the word obsessed when speaking to the risk assessor because her advances had been unwanted.
Yeah.
But she had been persistent. And by the time of this conversation with the risk assessors, I was aware that she was alleging we had engaged in a long-term sexual relationship. So in your witness statement to us, you have used obsessive, and she is making advances, plural, to you.
As I said, I may have used the word obsessed. I couldn't be sure.
Is the reality that your evidence is all over the place because it's simply not true?
I dispute that it's all over the place. It's just, to me, quite clear, but there's a whole load of information that you have that's come from other sources which contradict what I'm saying. Some of which is may have misled you.
Can we take that down, please? Can we go in volume 6 to tab 159, 745, 980? This is a report dated the 23rd of June 1992. It's a report about Jessica.
Mm-hmm.
Includes her name, her sex, her date of birth, her then East London address, her employment status, organisation Southern England Animal Liberation Investigation Unit, Hunt Saboteurs Association.
Yes.
Sets out the hunt she's attending and her associates. If we could look at the text, please. Jessica has recently moved. Thank you. Jessica has recently moved to Jessica's East London address from her parents' address in privacy. She will be sharing the house with privacy, surname unknown, privacy and privacy, who will move from Dulwich when he returns to the UK from a holiday in Eastern Europe. Jessica is an active Hunt saboteur who has committed acts of criminal damage to Surrey Union Hunt members' property in the past, having been influenced by seasoned campaigners, Privacy and Joe Tex. Recently, she has taken part in ALIU investigations and has expressed an interest in Animal Liberation Front-style liberation raids. Now that she has moved to London and is living with other animal rights activists, she is likely to commit criminal acts against wider animal abuse targets with them. There are no particulars of the alleged acts of criminal damage to the Surrey Union Hunt members' property. Why not?
I didn't know about them. It was reported to me by somebody, maybe by herself. I don't know that these incidents had happened, but I'm just reporting information I found out about her at this time.
And this report is saying that she has expressed an interest in ALF-style liberation raids.
Yes.
So it falls short of saying that she is an ALF activist.
I don't think by this stage she's taken part in something that I knew about, so that would be accurate, yes.
Although you've given evidence that you were taking an interest in her because she had been described to you as an ALF girl.
That's what I was told, and I was checking out that detail. You don't just accept what's said as fact. You try to corroborate it. That's general practice.
Can we go over the page? Thank you. And then I'm interested in there is no suggestion there of there being any registry file about Jessica, is there?
I don't see it there, no.
Could we now take that down and go in volume 7 to C254, sir? 746548. To the report itself, thank you. This is another up-to-date and information pro forma about Jessica. This one is dated almost a year later, the 2nd of June 1993. By this stage, it's reporting that she's working in the animal sanctuary in France. And this one sets out Animal Liberation Front, Hunt Saboteurs Association, and Animal Liberation Investigation Unit as the organisations she was associated with, and explains that she is in France and going to be coming back.
Yes.
Can we take it then that the reason the reporting has changed from interested in the ALF to ALF because of her involvement in the Hookley Farm raid?
I think that's an assumption I couldn't be absolutely sure. I think normally what would happen is that if someone was involved in something and it would fit with, say, the ALF, there'd be a cross-reference on that file, which is how these things would eventually end up on an organisational reference in a report in the future. It's possible that that's the reason. Yes, yeah.
Can we take that down? Can we go now to one last report before I'm going to stop for today? Volume 4, B, Roman numeral 4, 8, 748128, please, page 2. This is the evidence of someone called DWH, if you want to check the cipher list.
Yes.
And if we expand, first of all, the top paragraph. Member of the Brixton Hunt Saboteurs from 1990, first became aware of Jessica in 1991-92 season, and she was a saboteur, is the gist of that. If we go to the next paragraph, how do you know Andy? Do you recall DWH?
Yeah, he was the de facto leader of the... I know that anarchists don't like to be called leaders, but that's what he was.
Andy Davey presented himself to one of Brixton Saboteurs' coordinators again in the 1991 cub hunting season, ostensibly as a self-employed person who lived locally and was prepared to use his van for transport. He had contacts with London Animal Aid and other local animal rights groups. So far, nothing controversial.
Sure.
I was introduced to him as Andy Van early in the 91-92 season. He drove frequently as the number of saboteurs had increased dramatically and we required 3 vehicles to get all the sabs into the field. Andy was regular driver for the group until the raid of 13 Torrens Road by Farnham CID and Arnie, and supported by 16 uniformed officers from Brixton Station. This was reportedly in connection to Hockley Farm chicken liberation, subsequent conversations with housemates and other local activists indicated suspicions around Andy, who was apparently on this liberation action. I subsequently visited Andy at his house in Stanthorpe Street. I had not visited Andy at home before, and it did not take long for suspicions to arise. I did not feel he actually lived here. Brixton Sab subsequently removed his details from the contact list. Is that true?
No.
Just so we are absolutely clear, what is not true?
He never visited me at the address. He's got the address wrong. The reason why I stopped sabbing was because I was directed to move on to the LFSG, so I had no longer any need to be involved with them. If I was under that level of suspicion, I wouldn't have been able to maintain my activity in the LFSG, so I doubt any of that's true. It's correct that I didn't actually live there, that's true. And what Brixton Subs do with their records is up to them. I didn't know anything of that. But he's suggesting he's come round and he's been to my place. He never was. He was never there.
And is the error with the address simply that he said Stanthorpe Street and not Stanthorpe Road?
He's got the address wrong, yeah, that's right.
But that is the error?
Exactly, yeah.
Can we go down to the next paragraph? Thank you. Please, can you describe the relationship between Jessica and Andy? Was the relationship an intimate relationship? If so, how do you know? Please provide any information you can in terms of conversations you had with either of them or any behaviour you witnessed personally. The debriefs, often in pubs whilst awaiting release of arrested SABs, gave an opportunity to relax socially with friends and other groups. Jessica and Andy seemed to be a thing, definitely, in the later part of the 1991-92 season. The relationship was open, if not flaunted, and I personally observed intimate moments between them. Did he?
By that stage, I think we were in the same cell together, so there was like a different connection between people who were involved in ALF activity and the SABs. It was like a separation. So we probably did have that sort of connection. But the description of it being a flaunted, intimate relationship is a creation, I'm afraid.
When you say that sort of relationship, intimate moments?
Well, sitting together, chatting, being somewhat separated from others because we had a shared background in an ALF attack and were involved in planning others. Yeah, that's the sort of thing I mean.
As Andy was a driver for Brixton and Jessica sabbed with another group, there came a time when groups went their separate ways. Andy and Jessica's farewell to each other was intimate, if not passionate. Is that true?
That's an utter creation of the writer.
This I observed because as a frequent driver, it was my job to herd the group for departure. At least on one occasion that I can clearly recollect, when it was time to leave, Andy could not be found, and on searching was found to be already in his vehicle with Jessica sharing an intimate moment. Is that true?
Well, that would be extremely surprising if that were true. My goodness.
Is there any truth in it at all?
But why would you, in the middle of a SAB, covered in mud, cold, about to go back, think, oh, this is a good idea to have an intimate moment? It's ridiculous.
The reason it was apparent to me then that a relationship was occurring is due to several Brixton SABs having mentioned separately that they thought Andy was a lech. He seemed to be raising heckles amongst the more ardent feminists as being old-fashioned or even sexist. Is it right that you gained a reputation as a lech?
No.
That you were perceived as old-fashioned?
That was never suggested to me, no.
Even sexist?
No.
After a day of hard exercise in the fields, a warm pub tends to bring out the conviviality. In the later part of the season, Jessica and Andy were always together, snuggled side by side. Is that true?
No, it's not.
Is there any truth in it whatsoever?
It's possible at one occasion we were sitting together, yeah, that wouldn't be a surprise, but the suggestion of being snuggled or the suggestion of intimacy is made up.
I'm going to pause my questioning of you now so that we can interpose another witness.
Yes.
Tomorrow, I'm going to start by going back to the ALF SG.
Right.
You gave evidence this afternoon that you were given specific information about specific ALF actions, both in advance and after such actions. I would like you to direct the inquiry to examples of that sort of intelligence obtained through the ALF SG being reported, please.
I'm sorry, just what do you want to know? The names of the people that I was told were about to plan an attack?
I would like you to identify to the inquiry any examples that you say are of reports of intelligence obtained from the ALF SG which identify specifics
Let's be clear.
of attacks.
There are people talking to me because I'm a member of the LFSG who are saying they're going to plan an attack and be and if they were to be arrested to support them. So they're talking to me personally, believing me to be a representative of the LFSG. Is that specifically what you want? Because LFSG as an amorphous organisation is a slightly different thing than them telling me what they're about to do.
Yeah, I'm looking for instances where your evidence is you were told specifically
Yes.
about actions prospectively, including who was going to carry them out,
Yes.
what and when, and likewise told ex post facto on occasions. I would like you to identify any reporting of such intelligence obtained in that way.
Yes, I can identify one. I'm not sure how you get hold of the papers, but there was one which involved an arrest. And it was a time of the arrival of CPIA and disclosure. And my report of a year prior to the arrest was disclosed, which explained the 4 individuals involved that were planning an attack on a meat packing company. And a year later, they were independently caught by a traffic officer, I seem to remember, just on spec, and they found the incendiary devices in the boot of their car. That subsequently went to court, to court, and the judge made the decision to disclose my intelligence report. Because of that, the case was not proceeded with because it would have identified me as the source of that information.
Reading Crown Court, wasn't it, that one?
Yes, that's right, yeah. And post, it was generally reporting that would have come from the press office.
If you need any assistance with the index or the papers, I'm sure that we can arrange for that to be provided.
Thank you. That would be great.
Sir, I apologise for a slightly overrunning 4:30.
No, don't worry at all. Mr. Hildreth, I'm sorry, not Mr. Hildreth, Mr. Lowenthal. My understanding is that Jessica is willing to be recalled to give evidence to deal with the suggestion that the 2 letters, which she has said are hers, are not hers.
Yes, sir.
And she's willing to do that this afternoon now.
Yes, sir.
Yes. I will rise to enable the the hearing room to be set up appropriately. I know that in the past she has had some concern about Mr. Coles being in the hearing room when she gives evidence. Does that remain?
Yes, sir.
Then it's very important that you hear this evidence. And can I ensure, therefore, that before we resume, you are able to listen to it? It may be with a 10-minute delay, but you will hear what is said verbatim.
Thank you, sir. Great.